This one simple rule will change your chess forever. I'm gonna play this game. I'm gonna make normal, reasonable moves. Of course, I'm gonna explain how you make that and all of that, but every single move, I'm gonna use this rule that will allow you to finally join the top 1% of all of the chess players. And it starts from move number 1. Every single move, you need to follow it. Once you do, your chess changes immediately. So you see here, I'm making a very normal, reasonable move. Arguably, I like it much more than e4, although that depends on your taste and stuff that you're played afterwards. But our opponent immediately plays something very weird, and he's 2050 ELO rated player. So if you're gonna beat him, then you're ready to join the top 1%. And this rule is the follow. Whenever your opponent makes a move, try to understand his threat, and whenever you are about to make a move, try to understand what kind of a threat your opponent can create, what's gonna happen afterwards. So here he plays e5, creating a threat. I can think normally my second move would be knight f3, but before making that move, I have to think what would be the consequences. Yes, he's threatened to take, but my knight would protect it, so I can say that's not a problem. But we always consider all of the possible variations from our opponent, and we start with the most active ones: checks, captures, and threats. And so after knight f3, there would be a very annoying move e4, which would lead to us wasting yet another tempo with the same piece. Now, we normally always start with the most active opportunity here, so we just take on e5. Again, I don't want you to show here 10 moves, crazy combinations that, of course, is so difficult to implement in your own games. Instead, I want to focus on normal, reasonable moves that you can easily implement in your games. Yet if you're gonna follow this one game, then you are gonna stop so many blunders. You're gonna improve your chess accuracy so much, kind of instantly, just because you make sure you don't make those big mistakes. And of course, that influences your results so much. Okay, our opponent is playing some kind of a gambit, which is normal at this level. People play a lot of different, sometimes very weird stuff. We don't care. We make reasonable moves. Again, what is this threat? Our opponent is creating a threat to take our pawn. We can just take it, the most normal move. We don't play fancy here, and we do that. Now, our opponent wants to somehow get the advantage in terms of initiative and try to create as many threats for us as possible. Well, we have to acknowledge that, again, we never make our move. The main rule I want you to take away from this video: you never make your move unless you have thought about your opponent's opportunities, and when you think about that, think checks, captures, and threats. He had here the only check bishop b4, but it's kind of never a problem. We always have the move c3, or we can also block with one of our pieces, so that's not dangerous. Otherwise, we want just to finish our development here. I like, for example, to place the bishop on g2. But this video is not about openings, and arguably at this point it's not that important for you. You are not fighting for the top spot in chess just yet. Maybe you are about to in the future, and then I'm gonna be happy to help you with that as well. But at this point, the destiny of your games is decided by those huge mistakes, blunders that I want you to stop making once and for all. So, of course, yeah, sometimes the situation is so complicated and you're gonna make mistakes. It's normal. Nobody plays perfect chess. But this rule will help you reduce the amount of those huge mistakes you're making hugely. So, our opponent is creating a threat. Again, you see how I'm focused. The moment he makes his move, maybe I have had my own ideas and intentions here, but the moment he makes his move, we have to forget about all of that and think what is the idea behind his move. He wants to play bishop h3 and create some sort of an attack here. Maybe he wants also another idea of this move. The one move can consist of many ideas, and this is normally the best type of moves. He also wants to go long castles, which would improve his development even more and create even more ideas for him in the future. Okay, bishop h3 just on itself doesn't seem like a very huge threat. Yes, he can exchange, but at the end of the day, I'm a pawn up, so I shouldn't be that much afraid of the exchanges. Instead, I should focus on my development. Again, very normal move. Before making that move, I have thought what my opponent can do. Bishop h3 doesn't create any dangerous direct threats as well as long castles, and I play Nc3 because I want to bring every single one of my pieces into the game. In the best case scenario, I always want to spend just one tempo on each piece. That way you ensure that you develop all of your pieces as fast as possible, and this is our ultimate goal for the opening. We have to prepare for the battle. The best case scenario, when you are having some extra material, in this case I have an extra pawn, and your opponent is trying to give you a checkmate, he wants to go forward and destroy you. Well, guess what? The best thing you can do is just exchange those queens. That reduces the attacking potential of your opponent so much. That is why I'm thinking here of breaking that one piece, one move rule and actually play the move knight b5, because I don't see how he stops it. It's also with a check. So again, I never make my move unless I have thought about my opponent's threats, but he can never do anything because I always answer with the check. And if he goes away with the queen, then I'm still taking it and I'm exchanging my knight for a bishop, which is always great. Yeah, you see, he doesn't have any way to stop it, and now I'm actually happy to take it, because either he takes with the queen, which would help me achieve my main goal. You see, that is why he takes with the pawn. I mean, at the end of the day, he's top 1% of all chess players, so he's strong. But this way I'm also fine, because I have reduced his attacking material so much. Okay, he still wants to create that open H file, so I'm following his threats. Remember, we never make a move unless we have thought about that threat. The next question you ask yourself, can I stop that threat, but at the same time making something useful for myself? Yes, I can actually develop my last minor piece. Remember, we want to develop all of our pieces, and at the same time we stop our opponent's threat. Well, you might argue it wasn't that scary anyway, because we could have taken with the knight, but that's, you know, he can play g5 and then this h file is completely open. This way we add more stuff into our game. We can even take, I mean, continuing our idea to exchange as much as possible, but I'm not sure I like it, because this knight is not that dangerous and our bishop is very, very helpful for us. He's creating another threat. For example, if our knight moves, then this pawn might be in trouble. So again, we think, what is this threat? Right now, it's not like he can do anything dangerous immediately, so we might do something useful for ourselves, but I don't want to. I want to instead show you how you use this rule correctly. So it's not like, oh my god, my opponent creates a threat here, I have to just give up on everything and do that. In the ideal case, in the best case scenario, you want to combine doing something useful for yourself and stopping your opponent's threat at the same time. So you combine as many useful ideas in one single move as possible. This is your ultimate goal. So that's how we do it. Now I just need to develop my queen and my rook in the best way possible. For example, if I play queen d2, again, I think about my opponent's ideas. He has this very annoying fork and he's still playing it, which makes sense. Yeah, that's pretty active move, because remember, he wanted to play h4. Well, now it might be even more possible, although I have a lot of my pieces developed. Again, I'm thinking, what is this threat? It's probably bishop takes f3 first and then knight takes g5, so that he wins a piece. I cannot ignore it, so I immediately think, how can I deal with it? In the same time, maybe I can do something active, but, you know, this feels too fancy, because then he's gonna create more threats potentially. I don't know, maybe takes and then rook e5, stuff like that. We don't need that. We just want to make normal moves. We want to have as few of our pieces vulnerable and unprotected as possible. This way, we reduce the chance that we are gonna blunder something hugely. Like the more pieces you have vulnerable, the more chances there are that you are gonna blunder something. Instead, I want to have everything protected here. You see, all of my pieces are protected, and maybe knight d4 becomes my idea, because that's gonna open up this bishop and continue my plan to reducing my opponent's potential. At the same time, I should be careful with that h-pawn. I'm even thinking, maybe I should play h4 myself. Why not? Although, yeah, again, thinking, you see how important that is. h4 seems like a good move, but knight takes g3. It's a force in line, so I have to check that for my opponent, and then my bishop is going to be in trouble. So, okay, that doesn't work. That's fine. And what about knight d4? Because I'm threatening to take this. Maybe he wants to... it's also maybe I'm threatening to play f3 in some variations, forking those pieces, but again, this bishop is kind of unprotected, and that might be problematic. Okay, if he plays h4, yeah, at some point it can become scary, so I have to think about it. Maybe I just exchange this guy instead. Maybe I play just knight g5, or knight d2 for that matter, and exchange this guy, because this seems to be the most powerful piece, and he cannot really stop it, because I attack it twice. So the only way to stop the exchange would be to go back, which is good for me. I'm gonna play knight d2. Again, I'm breaking that principle, that golden rule, one piece, one rule, one move, but I only do it for a very good reason. So the rule is never make more than one move with every single piece in the opening and until you develop all of your pieces, unless there is a very good reason to do otherwise. In this case, I want to deal with my opponent's counterplay. Once I do that, I'm strategically completely winning. First, I have an extra pawn. Second, I have a much better pawn structure because this guy is isolated, very weak. And so all I need to do is just stop his checkmating attack. And I want to show you how you do that, first of all, by thinking about your opponent's ideas. Okay, he takes, which is perfect for me, because now there are even less pieces for him to attack me. And again, I'm thinking, how can I improve my position and at the same time create another threat for him? But first, of course, as always, I think what kind of threats there are. So if I wait too long, he's going to be able to launch some checkmating attacks. But directly, there are no real threats. He can just take me and, okay, the h file is open, but how can you use it? Maybe bishop h3, yes, that creates a threat. But with this move, I create a counter threat, which is very dangerous because I'm threatening to win another pawn, not that important, exchange the queens. Yes, this is our ultimate goal. That's gonna stop all of our opponent's attacking potential. I can't even do that now, but I don't want to because I'm gonna unnecessarily give up a lot of pawns. Why would I do that? Rook d1, I also want to point out the difference. I could have played bishop f4 and create the same threat. But bishop f4 is the move with the same piece that has already moved, has already been developed. Whereas this move is bringing a new piece into the game. And if you have a choice, it's always better to bring a new piece into the game. Now that all of my pieces are developed and most of them are active, I can think about optimizing my pieces. That would allow me to make a second move with the same piece that has already moved. In this case, that could be this bishop, because I want to create more ideas, again, creating threats, putting pressure on my opponents. But first, I'm always thinking what kind of a threat he is creating for me. But rook d8 is clearly, it doesn't create any threats, it deals with my threat. Maybe it creates an idea of queen to e6 though, because earlier it wasn't possible, or queen f5, because queen takes d6, but now it is. As he protects, he plays knight e5. Again, I'm thinking what kind of an idea he has, whether he has any checks, knight f3 or something. No, there are no threats. Knight c4 may be a little bit annoying, but it's like a different part of the boards, not the part of the boards where he really wants to play. So that cannot be too bad for me. And now I think, once I have thought about my opponent's threats, what are my active opportunities? And the good thing is you can use the same CCT system both for your opponent and for yourself. Checks, captures, and threats. I'm not doing anything fancy, but I can just win this knight, at least seemingly, because once he takes it back, I'm not winning it. Yeah, he's protecting it enough, but it's still good for me because I finally achieved my goal. I exchanged the queens. And that is very, very helpful because remember, I have an extra pawn. Yes, his pawn structure is a little bit improved, but now his checkmating attack, it does not exist anymore. We are in the endgame. And I want to illustrate how you convert your advantage in the endgame. Again, first of all, by thinking about your opponent. Most of the chess players are playing chess as if they're alone. And that is why they are stuck at their level, and that is why they cannot join that top 1% of the chess players. Once I, in my chess career, have started to think so much more about my opponent's ideas, that is the most important reason, the most important factor that allowed me to become one of those top 1% of chess players. Okay, for example, you might say that bishop d5 is an interesting move, but that is because that creates a threat and so on, but that is not taking into account what the opponent can do, and he can actually play rook to d8, and that's maybe not the end of the world, but why would we do that to ourselves? He creates a threat. Well, at least the pawn is hanging. Maybe it's not that dangerous because we can play b3, but still something to be aware of. Maybe the simplest thing is to go on with our pawns. You see, I need to be a little bit faster here with my time, because you never want to get into time trouble. In such a situation, doesn't matter how great your position is, you might make huge mistakes. It's more difficult to keep an eye on your opponent's threats when you don't have time. So I'm gonna be a little bit faster here. Generally, you don't want to do that. If you have light squares, bishops, you want to put your pawns on the dark squares so you control everything. But this way, I'm kind of blocking this bishop, so I think this is a nice idea. And now I do want to place my bishop there, because once I have thought about my opponent's threats, the most important thing, and I want to cement my bishop there. And yes, I have pretty much all of my pawns here, a lot of my pawns on the light squares, but as long as my position is very, very solid here, I don't think it's a problem. And in the long run, I want to create problems for him over here. I want to go forward. I want to activate my pieces. That's always the path to success, to activate, to optimize all of your pieces so that you can create more threats against your opponent. And of course, as always, think about his threats. So that was the first thing I have thought about, but also I have combined dealing with it as well as creating my own idea. This is always the best case scenario. So I'm playing the move c5. And now I'm creating some threats for him because I want to open up my rook. I want to make it more active. You always want to make all of your pieces as active as possible. But again, before continuing your plan, you have to think about your opponent's threats, because he's creating a huge threat, checkmate threat. If I just sleep for 1 second, I'm just gone. It's completely losing. So I have to think, how can I deal with it? And I really like this move, rook to c3, because I'm attacking this bishop. Thank God, I think it would be stronger if he would have played g5 first, because then he would be able to play g4 now. And then again, this idea is really dangerous. But I'm pretty sure I would have thought again this main question, what the opponent wants, when he here would have played g5, and then I would have played king to g2 to stop that idea completely. Okay, now it's not a problem anymore. I think I can take now to open up my rook. And I can even give another check, because he cannot go back. That would open up this bishop for me. And if he goes here, then I get the control over the second rank. And that might be very, very scary, very dangerous for him. Again, I have to be careful with this idea. Somehow I cannot allow that. Maybe I even have to play king g2 here anyway. Yes, I think so, because in such a position, you have an extra pawn, and this is the situation you encounter so much, but you don't want to spoil it. You don't want to blunder all of your advantage away. So first, you think about your opponent's counterplay. Does he have it? And yes, checkmate idea is very, very dangerous, so you don't want to blunder it. So you stop that, and then you start to think, okay, how can I use my advantage now that my opponent doesn't have any dangerous counterplay? I think rook d7, which would be a desirable move to defend everything, wouldn't work for him, because I have rook to c2 threatening two things. Okay, he actually does go for it. Let me make this move. I threaten to take his bishop, and I threaten to play bishop c6 with a check. So again, I have thought before making my move king to g2 what kind of ideas my opponent has. Not always it's a threat, like rook d7 is not threatening, but it's a very good defending move. And if it works tactically, it's great for my opponent. But it doesn't, because I have a counter threat. And again, he must have thought about it before he made his move rook to d7. And now he plays bishop h5, probably because, again, he has thought about this threat, but not about anything else. And remember, checks, captures, and threats. So he must have thought not only that the bishop is hanging, but also, do I have any checks to follow? So I hope you enjoyed this game a lot. You have learned this simple rule that I want you to use in every single one of your games and see how it's going to change your chess. If you want to become top 1% chess player so much faster, consider subscribing to ELO Accelerator Academy, where you get weekly live lessons with me. If you do it right now, you're gonna get the cheapest price ever. The link is in the description. I will be happy to see you inside of our academy.